friends. I'm Lauren, your Read Aloud buddy, and welcome back to the 14th episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. I am so happy that you're here. Before we start reading, make sure you're cozy and ready to listen. In this episode, we get to continue with our friend Pete the cat on his many adventures. Our first book today is called Pete the Cat's World Tour. Let's get ready to read the story as we're opening the book to the first page. Pete and his bandmates are going on a world tour. They are ready to rock. The first stop is Mexico. Pete is very hungry before the concert. What should I eat? He wonders. How about tacos? Suggests Gus. Pete tries a taco filled with fish, salsa, and lettuce. Tangy, he says, and delicious. Gus eats one filled with nopales. That is a kind of cactus. Next, the band performs on a mountain in Peru. The view is awesome, says Pete, but it's chilly up here. Would you like a cup of Peruvian hot chocolate? Asks a fan. I would love some, says Pete. Everyone try Everyone tries the hot chocolate and it warms them up. Peru is awesome. When the band arrives in Iceland, everyone is tired. That was a long flight, Pete says. We need to relax. Let's take a dip in the blue lagoon, suggests Octopus. It is very cold outside and hot in the lagoon. The water is very soothing. Ah, just what I needed, Pete says. Now the band will be ready to rock out tomorrow. In France, Pete wants something fancy. Should I have a baguette or an eclair? Asks Pete. Try both, says the baker. Merci, says Pete. Pete eats his French treats in front of the Eiffel Tower. It is a beautiful sight. The next show is in London. The band jumps on a red double-decker bus and explores the cool city. They see Big Ben. Look at the time. We've got to go to our next stop, says Grumpy Toad. Next, the band performs with a cool local singer on the Great Wall of China. Afterward, they're starving. They eat dumplings with chopsticks. In India, the band performs in front of a palace. They jam for hours in the hot sun. I could use a refreshment, says Pete. He takes a sip of cold mango lassi. Yum! Pete and his friends ride camels in Egypt. They rock out in front of the Great Pyramid. Do you think my drums will wake up the mummies? Asks Gus. The band rocks out at Victoria Falls. It is a waterfall between Zambia and Zimbabwe. We are in two countries at the same time, says Squirrel. Groovy, says Pete. The last stop on the tour is in Trinidad. Let's make this one count, says Pete. The band performs on the beach all day. The crowd goes wild. That was an amazing show, says Pete. I can't wait to come back. The worldwide tour is over and it is time to go home. There's no place like home, says Pete. But the world is full of groovy things and I can't wait to see them all. The end. Friends, our second book in this episode is called Pete the Cat Cavecat Pete. Let's continue on our storytime adventure as we're opening the book to the first page. Cave Cat Pete wakes up early. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. Today is going to be a great day, Pete thinks. But then Pete's bed starts to shake. His friend Vinny the Velociraptor is coming to visit. It's a perfect day for a picnic, says Vinny. What a great idea, says Pete. Who should we invite? Everyone, Vinny yells. Right on, says Pete. Pete loves picnics. He heads out to invite all his friends. First, Pete finds his good friend, Ethel the Apatosaurus. To get her attention, Pete climbs all the way up to the top of the tallest tree. Would you like to come to a picnic? Pete says. I'd love to, says Ethel. What can I bring? How about a really big salad? Pete suggests. What a great idea, says Ethel. I'm on it. Pete wanders along the river. He sees T Rex. T Rex plays guitar. T Rex is awesome. Hey, T Rex, Pete yells. Wanna come to a picnic? Sweet, says T Rex. Can I bring my guitar? Definitely, says Pete. We can jam. Count me in, says T Rex. Okay if I bring Al the Allosaurus? He's a whiz on the drums. The more the merrier, says Pete. Pete sees his friend Terry the pterosaur in the sky. Hi, Pete, she calls. Pete invites Terry to the picnic too. Would you mind giving me a lift? Pete asks. Sure, says Terry. Climb aboard. Pete sees the spiked tail of his main man, Skip the Stegosaurus. How are you feeling today, Skip? Pete asks. Skip has been sick with the sniffles. Better, says Skip. Thanks for asking. You up for a picnic? I think so, says Skip. I'd hate to miss the fun. It's almost time for the picnic. Cave Cat Pete rushes through the forest. He doesn't want to be late. Whoops! Pete trips over Trini the Triceratops. We're playing hide and seek, she says before Pete can ask what she was doing. I think I hid a little too well. How long have you been there? Asks Pete. What's today? Asks Trini. Well, all the dinosaurs are going to be at the picnic grounds. Want to come? Pete asks. What a great idea. Maybe somebody there will play hide and seek with me. It's time for the picnic. Vinny and Ethel are setting up the picnic tables. T Rex and Al are warming up to play some tunes. Terry and Trini are playing hide and seek. Even Skip seems to be enjoying himself. It doesn't get any better than this, Pete says. T Rex comes over then. Hey, Pete, he asks, is there anything to eat? I'm a carnivore. I don't eat salad. Trini comes over. Terry is cheating at hide and seek. She's flying around and peeking. Skip comes over. I don't feel so good, he says, and he sneezes. Achoo! The dinosaurs all start to argue. The picnic will be ruined if Pete doesn't do something. He leans over to Al and says, Can you give me a beat? Pete takes out his guitar and he starts to sing. Before long, everyone is having a great time. You know, T Rex tells Ethel, I've never actually tried salad before. Try it, says Pete. I bet you'll like it. T Rex tastes the salad. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Yum, says T Rex. This salad is delicious. Everyone grabs a plate and digs in. Everyone decides to play hide and seek. Pete is happy that everyone is getting along. He feels lucky to have such great friends. This was the best picnic ever, everyone agrees. It was the best picnic because you guys are the best friends ever, Pete says. And no one can argue with that. The end. Little listeners, our third and final book in today's episode is called Pete the Cat and His Four Groovy Buttons. Today's story has a song in it, so if you know it, feel free to sing along with Lauren. Let's find out what happens in this adventure as we're opening the book to the first page. Pete the cat put on his favorite shirt with four big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. My buttons, my four groovy buttons. My buttons, my four groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3 buttons. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 2 buttons. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 1 button. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my 1 groovy button. My button, my 1 groovy button. Pop! Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0 buttons. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt, and what do you think he saw? His belly button! And he kept on singing his song. My button, still have my belly button, my button, still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. The end. Thank you so much for joining me, your Read Aloud buddy, in this episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. Today we read Pete the Cat's World Tour, Pete the Cat Cavecat, and Pete the Cat and His Four Groovy Buttons. Which book was your favorite? Let me know in the comments and the polls. I'll see you next time on Lauren's Little Listeners for another Storytime adventure.